Hi, everybody. My name is Liam Martin, and this is Running Remote, the YouTube channel where you learn everything about building and scaling remote teams. And this is actually the first video that I'm ever going to make that is not about remote work. I know that there's going to be a lot more content coming out on how to work from home and how to prepare yourself to work from home, but this is an article that I read recently. My friend Marvin from 500 Startups actually sent it to me, and I found it to be such a great article that I thought I would make a video version walkthrough of it for people that don't really want to basically read this really long article, even though you should. I'm going to link it down below and explaining exactly what the situation is right now with regards to the coronavirus pandemic and how we uh, can solve it and the steps that we need to take in order to solve it. Now, the article is by Thomas Payo. Hopefully I spelled that or pronounced that right. I'll link it down below in the comments if you want to go through the article with me. So basically, this is the situation. We're currently seeing exponential growth in a lot of countries. And a lot of people are trying to think to themselves, well, the results of the coronavirus, particularly if you're a young person, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get the flu, but I'm not going to die from it. And you're absolutely right. If you get the flu and you're under the age of 39, your chance of dying from it is 0.2%. There's a mortality rate of 0.2%. However, there's a much more complicated component to this. Uh, we are seeing definitely exponential threat spread in Spain, Italy, France, the UK, the United States, and quite possibly even Canada, where I am currently located. Um, and we are having a logarithmic doubling every single 15 days approximately. So what does that exactly mean? Well, if you have one case on day 1, you'll have 10 cases on day 15. You'll have 100 cases on day 30. You'll have 1,000 cases on day 45. You'll have 10,000 cases on day 60, and it will continue on if we do not do anything. And the end result of that is this. This is chart 3 in this article, and it's basically showing what's going to happen over the next 180 days if we implement our mitigation strategy that we have currently deployed, which is we are not implementing draconian quarantine and social distancing, i.e., social distancing and quarantine that is enforced by law. We will, in essence, have 10 million dead within the next 6 months inside of the United States. And we will probably see an even worse result in other countries that have less developed medical systems. Now, this is the current plan that we have implemented inside of the United States and a lot of other countries as well. And a lot of people will say to themselves, well, we'll absolutely be able to get infrastructure to be able to boost this. And the reality is that we won't. There is a very concrete amount of ICU beds inside of the United States, or for that fact, inside of any major country. And we're not going to just see that overloaded in, by 50% or 60%. We're going to literally see it overloaded by 20, 30, 40x, 4,000% overloaded. So if you don't get an ICU bed and you need one, there's a 90% chance that you're going to die. So the WHO projects a 3.4% mortality rate from the coronavirus on average. Now, it affects older people much more than younger people, but there's other variables that are not being taken into consideration, chief of which is other needed surgeries or medical care that needs to be deployed outside of just serving coronavirus. My father was in an ICU approximately 3 months ago, and he had to go on a ventilator. He had very serious pneumonia. If the system is completely overloaded, he will not be getting one of those ventilators. He will not be getting one of those ICU beds. He will most probably die from this virus if he is infected. So, same thing with my grandparents that are both plus 80. Their chances of making it through this are not very good, and the percentage, the mortality rate will actually go way up once our medical system is overloaded. Now, the thing that we're currently trying to do is like the mitigation strategy, which is basically this, which is like making sure that we're not interacting with people, deploying self-isolation strategies, closing schools and universities, and they definitely reduce the curve, but they don't get rid of the curve. And as you had seen previously, this is not something that is going to overwhelm our system by 10 to 20%. This is going to overwhelm our system by many, many, many multiples of what we can possibly deploy within the next 3 months. So there is the argument that this will create herd immunity. And you're absolutely right. It will create herd immunity for the current version of the virus. One of the most terrifying things that you could do, and remember, this virus has already mutated multiple times. This is just one chart of all of the different iterations of the coronavirus that have been deployed or that have mutated over the last 3 months. So there actually is now 2 major strains, and they are very different. One kills you faster, has a higher mortality rate, and the other one is a lot more infectious. If we try to go the herd immunity rate, there is no guarantee whatsoever that we will actually have the same virus that we started with that we will have in 3 months. So it could mutate 4 or 5 times. It could go from a mortality rate of 3.4% to 20%. It could increase the R naught from 3 to 6. You really don't know. And every time this mutates, everything is reset. So you can be reinfected, much like the flu. The flu is it's not the same infection that you get over and over again. It mutates every single year, and that's why you get the flu every single year. So it's really important to recognize that this herd immunity strategy could work for the current iteration of the virus. However, once we go through our population, which will cost us tens of millions of lives, we could be right back to where we started right now today. So the best strategy is really a suppression strategy. And this is actually this article's interpretation of that, which is implementing very draconian lockdown procedures for everyone inside of society. And I know that that sounds really scary for a lot of people. However, it's very clear to me that by mitigating all of these extra variables that we currently have in our society, I'm sure you're probably seeing the people in South Florida that are partying right now. Those people are unfortunately not voluntarily going with our self-isolation protocols that the governments of the world have tried to implement. So I think the only answer actually is implementing a very clear government lockdown enforceable by law. And this, to me, is the best direction forward. Now, what this does cost you, this costs you your economy. We will have a complete shutdown of the economy. There will be very little commerce that is going on other than obviously very basic services. But I believe the cost benefit analysis actually means making this decision today will, yes, hurt us within the next 4 to 8 weeks. However, I think it will actually save us billions and trillions within the next few months. This article lays that out very clearly. This is basically the article that came from Imperial College of London talking about the suppression strategy. And the green one is the suppression strategy, meaning We implement absolute draconian lockdown like they've done in China, like they've done in Singapore, and like they've done in Korea. And then eventually we're still stuck with this initial problem, which is the actual virus coming back. No one actually develops herd immunity, and eventually we will have to deal with it. However, there is a really important variable that we need to take into consideration. This strategy, yes, it destroys the economy, but it provides us time. It provides us time to make ventilators, to make gloves, to make masks so that everyone can start to arm themselves up. There's a really great quote in here. What if you were about to face your worst enemy, of which you knew very little, and you had two options? Either you run towards it, or you escape to buy yourself a bit of time to prepare. Which one would you choose? We need to arm ourselves with weapons right now. We don't have those weapons. We need the masks. We need the ventilators. Those are the bullets inside of the gun. Our healthcare workers are the soldiers. We need to be able to deploy that as quickly as humanly possible. And if we overload our medical system, we will by far increase the amount of deaths that are currently happening now. We could have a 1% mortality rate where we could handle the population versus a 3, 4, 5, 6% mortality rate if our system is overloaded. This is an example of what they did in Hubei, implemented a very draconian lockdown, and then within approximately 2 weeks, the amount of cases started to drop. And that's what we need to do in the United States, Canada, France, Italy, everywhere. It's really the only answer. I'm a statistician by training. I just see this number so clearly. And I see the other direction that we take being quite possibly an absolute disaster. And everyone on planet Earth needs to be able to deploy this. Every country on planet Earth, because if there's a large population that decides to go the herd immunity route, that could open us up to mutations that could come right back the next season, the next year, and be just as bad or worse than what we currently have. This is, again, this is something that I know is going to be really, really difficult for a lot of people to get their heads around. We need to be able to really deploy a very clear hammer. This is what this article calls it, the hammer. I'm going to call it the lock us up movement. I'm ready to get locked up. Lock me up, lock us up. That's what we need to be able to do. Deploy the hammer, lock us all down, and we can then give our medical workers and our scientists time to be able to work on a cure and also arm ourselves with the equipment that we need to actually fight this virus. It's so important that we do this, and we can, within the next, this article is saying 3 to 7 weeks. I would realistically prepare everyone for 8 weeks. We will, in essence, be able to go back to a lot of the life that we had before the actual virus started. If you look at models like Singapore, if you look at models like Korea, they are actually fantastic models that I think would be palatable for North Americans and Europeans. However, we need to actually take action on it. And this is something that, this is a graph that we wish that governments could have all over the world, exactly breaking down how to reduce that R naught. That's a really good one to kind of take a look at. But fundamentally, what we need to be able to do is implement the purchase of time. This is the best highlight inside of this article. On one side, countries can go the mitigation route, create a massive epidemic, overwhelm the healthcare system, drive the death of millions of people, and release new mutations of the virus in the wild. On the other, countries can fight. They can lock down for a few weeks to buy us time and create an educated action plan and control this virus until we have a vaccine. I have personally been on lockdown for weeks, completely voluntary. I am asking the Canadian government, I'm asking the US government, I'm asking the governments of the world, lock us up. We're ready. We can do it. There will be people that are not ready. They will understand within the next few weeks. If you start seeing body bags on the street corners of Manhattan, people will start to understand. But once that starts happening, it's already too late. We need to deploy this now. Please let me know if you do disagree with this. I feel that this is a very clear article, but it is something that I'm very passionate about. I have my first child on the way in July, and I would love to be able to have a medical system that is in any way functional when that happens. Thanks for taking time to watch this video. Read the article, share this video, talk to your government representatives. This is so important for us to do right now. Thank you.